It's Tuesday, the 15th of April, tax day here in the U.S. of A. Julio, let's open again on you as we did on Friday's shoe. Shoe? A really big shoe, as Ed Sullivan used to say. Co-host Julia Vatican, Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, longtime member of St. Francis Yacht Club, and my landlady, so I have to be nice to her.
You have to be nice.
You have to be nice to her so she doesn't kick me out here of my apartment. We'd lose Studio B. I'm your host, Tom Eamon. Welcome to yet another live show. This one is 825. And this Friday's show was huge, but may I tell you, this one is arguably more consequential.
Yes.
Isn't it? You've been hearing some of the discourse this morning, Julia.
It's been loud.
Well, when I'm in hair and makeup, I try to get Julia to warm up, to start move her arms and shout and sing and, you know, get warmed up, get her 86-year-old brain warmed up. I got to get my 70, almost 2-year-old brain warmed up. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on today's show, and it's a big one. Not only are we celebrating finally a sailing CEO, but what day today, Julia? What Remembrance Day is it? Forget about Tax Day.
Oh, who can forget Tax Day?
And thanks for all the kind comments after Friday's show and my modest proposal. We'll touch on that again. But we had a big viewership on Friday and a lot of very kind comments after that show, for which we are deeply appreciative. Julia, we're also going to talk about the 2028 Olympics again. The final decision on the venue has been taken, and we are going to tell you what that decision is. The coaching, whether it's San Pedro or Long Beach. The Coaching Corner, John Emmett, featuring the wonderful Wembley Sailing Club up north and west of London. The Fosey Focus. Oh, come on.
Come on.
Come on. The Fosey Focus, Shane Couch, Mark Holland, Andrew McIrvin, and more. We got a couple others that we've stuck in. Huzzah! Our one here's from Friday is confirmed that Charlie Enright of the USA has indeed been named. It was announced yesterday, the new CEO, the executive director of U.S. Sailing. Finally, a sailing CEO. And I have another one here's for you. This is more than a one here's. I have information from the highest levels I'm going to reveal to you about the next America's Cup. And we'll tell you that after we get through the other stuff here. And I'm telling you, it's an abomination, what I'm going to tell you later on in the show. As you see here in these notes, it would be hilarious if it were not so sad for the Cup and the sport. I just cannot believe what is being contemplated here by the defender. And I will tell you during the show, with not just a one hears, but this is with
one nose.
One nose. Oh, good one, Julia. A one nose. That's indeed what it is.
Some people have two noses. This is one nose.
Well, between us, we have two noses. And then Alistair Murray is the latest and arguably greatest foiler, a new foiler concept from Australia, which is being tested, particularly good for youth. We'll have that for you. And then in the last leg, with only 2 weeks to go, we're going to celebrate again the Congressional Cup. And we have the latest on that, and whether Ian Williams and or Taylor Canfield are going to be involved in a nice promo video. And that'll wrap up the show with the D block and our usual day in history, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and our fantastic Fosey chat and more. Let's get into it. And thank you again for your very kind comments since our show on Friday, when I proposed, as you probably will remember, that we should merge the Cup and Sail GP. I mean, the Cup still's the pinnacle of our event. It's it's always going to be the pinnacle, in my never so humble opinion, but I think it will remain as such. But this pre-regatta stuff that is contemplated in the AC 40s and beyond, and the Women's America's Cup, Youth America, it would be much better. The whole organization, the whole effort would be better served if Sail GP's AC 50s, which are just as fast as the AC 75 mono, the Gecko foiling monohulls, just as fast. Why do you laugh?
They're geckos.
Well, they are geckos. We played that video when that concept was first launched.
I know.
But they should just use the AC-50s, build a new bespoke in-country AC-50 that each of the teams, and now instead of just the 3 or 4 or 5 teams, you'd have a dozen teams, including teams from Brazil and Germany and other countries that have never participated. And it just makes so much sense, as it apparently did to a lot of you, The only problem is whether it's a bridge too far, whether these two gentlemen could ever sit down and talk turkey, as we say in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And yachting Kiwis are rivals on the water. This from the New Zealand Herald from a few years back. I think they can. I don't know Grant very well, but I certainly know Russell well. Done 2 cups with him and then some. The guys, both of them are super smart and are, I think at the end of the day, have the sport, our beloved sport, in their hearts. And they might be convinced by others, including Larry Ellison, including Matteo Denora, including maybe Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, if he were to get involved, and others to help mediate, help moderate their intentions and their going forward together, one could hope, with SailGP and the America's Cup. I still think it would be the best thing that could happen for our sport, at least. Maybe not since sliced bread, but Julia, it would certainly be good. And based on all the comments we got,
Yes,
and there were a lot of them,
there were a lot.
I think it would be very positive indeed. One can only hope.
The comments were up 660%.
On Friday's show?
Yep.
Over what, the previous show?
Yep.
Well, we had something like 3,000 views after when we left air, and we've had something north of 5,000 now on
right.
the 3 platforms on which. But, views, schmooze, I don't care. So that was that article in the New Zealand Herald in 2013. So it's, 12 years ago when the two of them sat. In fact, I advised Russell not to go down to New Zealand. This was just before the September 2013 Cup. And there was a big charity event, black tie event in Auckland. And Russell went down there and sat on the stage with Grant. And that was when Grant was everybody's, he was everybody's favorite son because he was the Kiwi representing New Zealand and trying to win the cup back for New Zealand, which, of course, did happen in 2021, but it's been offshore since. Comments are rolling in. Speaking of comments, Julia, get your second friend, Julie Ahrens, to talk to Grant. That's an idea, Pedro Filing Sailor.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not dwell on that because the news I've got for you about the Cup and about future thinking on the Cup, including the immediate future, is frankly astonishing. And we'll bring that to you in the C block. Some good news from L.A. Those of you who are Angelinos will know that's Dodger Stadium. It has been announced as among the new venues for 2028. The lineup is nearly complete. They've got a couple sports that are still not yet situated. However, I'm pleased to report sailing has been situated. It's not one of the sports still up in the air. After Los Angeles, this is from the LA Times today or yesterday, I'm not sure, maybe today. After Los Angeles, Long Beach, the esteemed and our favorite venue, will be the second busiest venue city with 11 sports disciplines, highlighted by Tuesday's edition of beach volleyball at Alamitos Bay. That's cool. Right there by the clubs, by ABYC and Long Beach Yacht Club. The popular sport was originally earmarked to be held near the Santa Monica Pier up in L.A., but years-long talks between LA 28 and Santa Monica broke down as an IOC deadline which was last Tuesday, approached for last week's executive board meeting of the IOC. There are the sports for Long Beach. And if you look down that list, artistic swimming, beach volleyball, canoe sprint, coastal rowing, marathon swimming, shooting, sport climbing, which is rock climbing, or it's not rock climbing, it's wall climbing in the gym, so to speak, water polo, rowing, handball, and ta-da! Sailing will be at the Belmont Shore. Long Beach will be used for the marathon swimming and sailing events for the 2028 Olympics. That photo that's behind that graphic there from Al Saib for the LA Times. And all I can say, Julia, is...
Hoopla!
Hoopla, as you would say. Huzzah, as my friends down in Newport Beach, our It's Okay gang.
Oh, good. Do huzzahs?
They do huzzah.
Huzzah.
Huzzahs. But bravo Zulu, regardless for that. That's great news.
It is.
To lead off the show. There's Denise Peterson, who's joining us. Her son, our super Fozy, Jeffrey Peterson, will graduate from Georgetown University in 30 days. It's unbelievable. And yes, Training to Win, which is John Emmett, is reminding us that NZL, what used to be called the New Zealand Yachting Federation. What is it now? Sailing New Zealand, New Zealand Yachting. They're looking for a new CEO now. Santa Monica would suck, Ed Worley is saying. Santa Monica's too busy with other stuff.
The pier's not in
Well, and they've got
right
all
now.
that fire stuff up, that's just happened in and around there.
Yeah.
Gordon Smith, sorry about the number of comments. I fell asleep on that keyboard. Oh, my goodness. Lots of great comments. And what great news. Long Beach confirmed. And thanks to all of you who put, some effort into this, called on your national authorities, called on the IOC, called any of you that had, like John Sangmeister and Lisa, Lisa Meyer, who's the Commodore of Long Beach Yacht Club. They've all been putting their shoulders to the, what's the metaphor? Shoulders to the wheel?
Yeah.
Is that the right metaphor? Shoulders to the...
Yeah.
Come on, you went to Stanford. Get with it.
Shoulders to the grind.
Grindstone. Okay. And they've confirmed now Long Beach has that venue. Great news. Okay. And we have great news about Charlie Enright. We'll get to that in a minute. But Julie, in the meantime, what are we celebrating today?
Besides taxes.
Well, did you get your taxes in?
Nope.
Did you file an extension?
Not yet.
I did. In the U.S., for those of you who don't know, if you don't pay your taxes, it can't get your paperwork completed because you got a complicated. And mine's not all that complicated. I'm just lazy. But Julia has a very complicated setup, and she has filed an extension. It gives you an automatic 6-month extension in the middle of October to get your paperwork in, but you still have to pay now on what you expect you will owe. And if you underpay, you'll pay penalties. And
Well, you pay a penalty anyway if you file late.
Well, no, not if you file late. You don't pay a penalty. Only if you.
$20.
Is it?
I think so.
I don't think so. I don't think there's any penalty. Some Americans.
It's not huge.
It's only if you underestimate, and if the check you sent with your request, your automatic extension, if it's way under, they're going to penalize you for an interest to make it up. So what are we celebrating today, Julia? There's a clue there behind the lower third.
Yes.
It is Titanic Remembrance
I was gonna
Day.
say, I don't know those.
It sunk on April 15th, way back when. What was it, 1912? Something like that. Songs have been sung, books have been written, movies have been made, and stories have been told about the RMS Titanic. A day that has been remembered for more than 100 years. The sinking of the Titanic on the 15th April 1912 was a shock to the world when the ship sank on its when the great ship went down to the bottom of the, losing more than 1,500 lives in the process. This luxury ship, which was built starting in 1909, cost around $7,500,000, which sounds like real money even in those days, especially in those days, to build. And 2 workers were lost during the process simply of building it. One of the most important lessons learned about the Titanic is that even though many people thought it was unsinkable, it is always necessary to have enough lifeboats on board for everyone. Though the ship was equipped to carry 64 lifeboats, there were only, I didn't know the number was, I knew it was low, but I didn't know it was this low, 1/3, only 20. These lifeboats on board the Titanic would have been enough for around 1,100 people, but the capacity of the ship, including passengers and crew, was more than 3 times that. Yeah, they thought it was unsinkable, so why would you need lifeboats? The Ides of April, Baton Rouge is saying, not the Ides of March, but the Ides of April. Didn't have enough life rafts. That indeed is the case. So what else are we celebrating today? But all of you who come on the show regularly, who watch the show regularly, particularly those of you who contribute via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated if you're inclined. Some people give us a few bucks a month. Some people give us a lot more than that to keep us on the air, to keep our studio modern and up to date.
It's very much appreciated.
It is indeed.
Especially by your landlady.
Well, my landlady, and it's also especially appreciated by the people, the streaming services that we pay.
I know.
Zoom and Restream.io and on and on and on. Okay, Charlie Enright, we're going to get to him and the celebration of him as our new leader of the sport here in the U.S. of A. Stingray's asking if the non-sailing CEO was at the helm of the Titanic when it down. Oh, that captain was apparently very, very capable. But obviously had some other problems. Best streaming show on sailing, bar none. Mark Michelson, thank you for that. You're very kind. Used to be a SoCal boy, now living the good life up in Idaho.
Right.
And our weather guru and more. If you ever need team shirts, see, we scratch your back, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, Mike.
Yeah.
If you ever need team shirts, his wife has a company and they produce quickly and at low cost, very fine gear for sailing teams and so on.
Yes.
Let's get to the coaching corner. We've got John Emmett's coaching corner here at the top of the B block because it's really quite good, and he's celebrating club. We love it when you or others, and John included, celebrate other sailing clubs. We get to know them. I'd never heard of this club myself, but it's a good one, the Wembley Sailing Club, northwest of London. And here is John's report for today. It is the Wembley Sailing Club, as I was mentioning, just north and west of London, for those of you who are geographically challenged, on one of those many lakes in that part of England.
Yes.
And to say nothing about the lake district. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Big facility. Look at all the dry storage for the boats, the long docks at the Wembley Sailing Club. There's a closer up look of some Ilkas being launched. And Wembley Stadium there is in the background, one of the big stadia, excuse me, in the UK and the world, in fact. Terrific event. Yeah, and here's John's report.
Hi Tom, Julia and all the Fozy. So I think it's about time for another walk and a talk. So I'm up here in London at Wembley Sailing Club, and it's just amazing how many sailing clubs we have in the UK. So I think that's one of the things, the more people you have participating in sailing, the better. For elite sailing, it means the person who gets to the very top is likely to be really, really high level, and it's hard because sometimes you have two people from a country who could go to Olympics and win a medal, but of course there's only one place. In terms of the grassroots and the social side, the more peers you have, the more fun it is for everyone. And it also means that those large sailing events, there's a good opportunity that everybody has a race. So some people are racing for first to second, and some people are enjoying that mid-fleet battle or just to win the silver fleet. So you can see here we have an absolutely full boat park. This is right in the centre of London. I can't believe I came up here on a Saturday to do a training to win talk, and there's still traffic, so I'm quite happy living on a farm slash living in Weymouth. But hopefully you can see the joys here. I was asked quite a long time ago to just show a little bit about how I film, and I didn't want to bore people too much with details, but these are the DJI mics that I'm using. It's just recorded using my phone, and in terms of making it colourful, I actually shoot in log, so you can see now if I don't colour grade it, everything looks very, very grey, and then hopefully I've made it look wonderful and colourful, and you can see me in my full glory when I do that colour grading. And you probably noticed the last one of these I did, I tried to record around the golden hour, and yeah, I had to re-record it and it was nearly dark in the end, so that's why the colouring went a bit wrong. But the reason I talk about the media and the quality of the media, and the reason I'm so passionate about the media, is I think it's the best way to showcase our sport. Not only because sadly we have to prove to the International Olympic Committee that people want to watch our sport, and that's literally achieved by, you know, number of views, but just to make it more presentable, more inspiring. And what I don't want to see is our sport changed. What I want to see is telling the stories, the achievements over adversity, the people who had the life-changing injury and are now loving their parasailing, the lady who stopped, took a year out, had a baby, came back and one Olympic gold. These are all fantastic stories, and it's probably more interesting than who was first around the Windward mark each time. Although from a coaching perspective, you'll be surprised. Windward mark position is a very good indicator of final race position, and average Windward mark position is a very good indicator of overall regatta finishing position. And that's why we work so hard on our boat speed and our first speed tactics. So this brings us nearly to the end of this little boat park, but there's a huge number of boats and active sailors here, and the winter talks have been a staple part of my coaching over the winter time. We're now moving into the summer. In fact, technically it's British summertime, and we had over 20 degrees today, so I think this is probably my final talk of winter season. I've had a couple of beers, there's a few people waiting for me, so I better go and crack on. So sail fast, sail safe, and have fun.
Yeah, Groover is saying, John, please tell those people having fun to quiet down. John Emmett's Get to the Front of the Fleet with John Emmett Sailing. And we love his reports. We love John. We appreciate very much his regular contributions to this show.
Indeed.
Including that Zoom panel that he led a few days, well, more than a few days now, a few weeks ago, right, yeah. Julia? Mm-hmm. On parasailing, and he got some of the parasailers together. It's a subject near and dear to his heart, Alistair Murray's heart, a lot of you in Australia, a lot of you in the UK, and all of us here in the States, I think. When we did that panel on show number 805, we've got to get parasailing reinstated for Brisbane 2032 as a demonstration event, sport. We know it can't come in the regular Paralympics, but whatever you can do to help influence that, especially those of you in and around Brisbane and in Oz, please do so.
And I should also say it's reintroduced to the...
Good point.
The Olympics.
And what was the first first Olympics that had parasailing in it? 1996.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Olympics.
Yeah.
The Savannah. And we celebrated one of the gold medalists from that event on Friday's show, too, at the top of the show, who's right. Mr. Cassell, yes. Andrew Cassell, who's a good friend of a lot of you Brits on here and beyond. And the funeral was Friday, and I understand it was just... The good and the great were there, according to Magnus.
Oh, that's good.
The Magnificent.
Yeah.
Terrific.
That's
Savannah.
good.
Yeah, the sailing was in Savannah. Clayton Embley's remind. Hey, Clayton, I have a question for you. Was the Paralympics, they were also in Savannah, right? I had scooted from town before the Paralympics happened, but I was there on the jury for the regular Olympics, both in 92 and then in 96. In Savannah when the regular main Olympics were in Atlanta. But the Paralympics were also in Savannah. Is that right? Clayton was probably working on that event. He's saying yes.
Yes. Okay.
They were as well. Nice weather, John. Take advantage of it. Yeah, he said it was 20 degrees, right? 20 Celsius. Spring has sprung here in the Northern Hemisphere. Julia, we're going to have some nice weather as well. In the next few days, going to be warm before the winds start blowing.
No, in San Francisco, it's going to be in the 60s still.
Well, same as always. But up in Calistoga, where your weekend and summer cottage and home is,
right?
It's going to be warm.
Yes,
it's going to be hot.
Not
up there in wine country. And
80s is just pleasant.
Well, that's hot. Here in the Marina District, it's 50 at night, 60 during the day. It's sweater weather year-round. Never gets too warm or too cold. We have a FOSI focus. Did I say that correctly, Julia?
Thank you.
A foci, because we're focusing on more than one FOSI. For those of you who are just new to the show, FOSI is Friend of Sailing Illustrated. That's collectively the regulars on here that watch and come on the show and support us. So FOSI, of which we're deeply appreciative. Friends of Sailing Illustrated. That's what that stands for. Mm-hmm. Now, the other day, I told you about a new FOSI collaboration between these two gentlemen. The only problem is the guy on the right is not Mark Holland. That is Shane Couch, the artist from the Isle of Wight, whom several of you know. I've now talked with him, and he's going to come on the show at some point sooner or later and tell us about his latest artistic endeavors.
Oh, good.
And Mark Holland is going to come on the show as well and talk about his America's Cup compendium. The only problem is that is not Mark Holland. And I apologize. I pulled that off Facebook the other day when I made that graphic. That's the real Mark Holland with the real America's Cup. And I have no idea, Julia, who Mr. X is.
Well, we'll find out.
Probably his name, too, is Mark Holland. It's not exactly an unusual name. So I apologize to the real Mark Holland. But speaking of Shane Couch, you see these two gentlemen, Julia?
Yes.
You recognize the gentleman on the left.
I do.
Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, and he and Shane are they've known each other well for a long time. It turns out they've been sailing together.
Oh, no kidding.
And they're going to race indeed this weekend. I think Shane is going to sail on Andrew's boat, his, what is it, a 30-something or a 40-footer that he races, on which he races regularly. And Shane's apparently crewing for him again this weekend or so. Andrew tells me this morning in a telephone chat that he and I had. So bravo Zulu to them. Ted Ryman is saying the one on the left looks a bit dodgy. Mr. Doctor. And what else? Clayton Embley is saying parasailing events were on, Lake Lanier. Okay, that's what I thought, Clayton. They were on Lake Lanier, which is one of the two big lakes outside of Atlanta, Lake Lanier. Some of the sailors sailed at the Savannah Yacht Club afterwards. Okay, that makes more sense because I didn't think the Paralympics were also in Savannah where the main sailing Olympics were. Julia, for extra credit, do you know what the name of the other big lake outside of Atlanta is?
I don't.
It's my favorite name of a lake anywhere in the world. Allatoona. Atlanta's Lake Allatoona. I'm not kidding.
Allatoona.
And they're both reservoirs. Lake Lanier.
Yeah.
Remind me to tell you after the show, the late night, I and the late great Commodore Harry Anderson in New York and a few others had on a float boat, on a pontoon boat.
I will.
On Lake Lanier one year.
I've been thinking about Harry lately. I don't know why.
Our GBR, two of our many now GBR foes, Andrew, Mr. Dr. McIrvin, and Shane Couch, and we're looking forward to having Shane on the show, and Andrew, no doubt, will be back again soon. Julia?
Yes.
Who's that?
I don't know.
That's a proud grandfather. He doesn't know I'm running this.
Oh, that's Rick Bannero.
It's Bannero, and it's a Facebook post I happened just to find before I went to hair and makeup, so I stuck it in. Evan, Pop, apparently as he's known by his grandsons, and Max at the new Stephen F. Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum in Chantilly, Virginia. It's a wonderful adjunct to the original Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in D.C. You can see the
nice
plane over the shoulders there in the back. But apparently it's a hell of a cool museum, which is one reason I wanted to run it, but also to recognize the Fuzzy Fozzie, as he's called.
Those boys are so cute.
He must be very proud of them. And Pop. I think maybe we start calling him, instead of Fuzzy Fozzie, we start calling him Pop.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. If you can sail on Lake Lanier, you can sail anywhere. Well, it's true, Jonathan Frank. If you can sail on a small inland lake that's shifty and puffy, you can sail most anywhere. And I tell you, the lake that I and Clark Chapin grew up on is even smaller by far than Lake Lanier, and even shiftier and puffier. Nothing like lake sailing, which I assert is why people like Buddy Malgus, who grew up on Lake Geneva up in Wisconsin, the late great Buddy Malgus, and people like him are such good sailors. Why even the San Diego turns out so many good sailors, because they go outside of Point Loma and race in the ocean and the kelp and the fairly light air and the swell, so that's challenging. But racing in San Diego Bay, Julia, is like racing on Portage Lake where I grew up. It's light, puffy, and shifty. Plus, you got the Navy going in and out with the aircraft carrier. Yeah, ask Ted Turner. Jonathan Frank is saying Ted Turner grew up on those lakes as well. Okay. You think we have any more Fozzie announcements, Julia?
Probably.
You're right. Do you recognize that yacht? Can you see the name on the back?
Okay, Australia.
It's Australia. It is not Australia 2, which won the Cup in '83. It's Australia, which challenged for the Cup before that. And it is a new, very proud to say, a new Fozzie acquisition. One of our Fozzie has acquired that boat in Sydney and is going to put it to very good use, and will soon come on the show to announce that.
Oh, good.
And in the meantime, if any of you has photos or videos our Fozy, who is putting together that boat and the program, and as I said, is going to put to a very good charitable use and more, is looking for photos and videos of that boat, especially when it was used in the Cup in the late 70s in Newport, Rhode Island, and trialed otherwise. 77 Challenger versus Courageous. Correct, Clayton Embley. And it is a great-looking boat, isn't it?
It is.
Isn't that just...
Yep.
At the dock, is that Sydney? I believe it is. Not 100% sure, but it's a Fozy acquisition. Thanks, Ed Worley, for sending that photo along. He actually posted it on Facebook, and I saw it there. Thanks, Ed, for that. He is a big 12-meter aficionado, as you know, and an America's Cup expert.
Yes.
And contributor to the show, Mr. Ed Worley.
Indeed.
Julie, let's get to celebrating Charlie Enright Super Sailors. I put in the lower third. Hooray, huzzah, bravo Zulu, because U.S. Sailing has finally appointed a sailing
Good morning.
a sailing CEO in the name of Charlie Enright, who is not only was a great collegiate sailor, former Yachtsman of the Year here in this country, but also we told you last Friday it was happening. Not that we'll pat ourselves on the back any more than we usually do about getting the info and the scoop on here, but
one hears.
We've been telling you that without naming him until Friday. I finally named him on Friday because I knew that he had accepted and the board had approved him, so we got on with it. But it was announced formally yesterday. Bravo Zulu to him for accepting the job in the U.S. Sailing.
And bravo Zulu to U.S. Sailing for having him.
For hiring, exactly. Yeah. Exactly right, Julie. So well done, and praise of performance. We give U.S. Sailing and Charlie a bravo Zulu, as he has indeed been appointed as the CEO of U.S. Sailing. The press release I'm excerpting from, which was released yesterday, Charlie Enright appointed as CEO of U.S. Sailing yesterday, April 14th. U.S. Sailing today announced Charlie as who is an accomplished leader in the sailing industry as the association's new chief executive. Enright will take the helm of U.S. Sailing, the sport's national governing body, as if you didn't know that, following an extensive national executive search, and he'll begin, by the way, on May 1st. Quote, "We are extremely proud to welcome Charlie to U.S. Sailing," said Henry Brower, the president, a longtime friend of mine, not a close friend by any means, but I've known him since the 70s. And in fact, those of you in Cleveland, I met Henry Brower at Mentor Harbor Yacht Club, I think in 74. That's a long time ago, Julia. Is that 51 years ago? It is. Charlie offers a wealth of experience as a world-class sailor, a proven leader in sustainable practices. Got to get the DEI reference in there. And a passionate, in the Greenie references, and a passionate advocate for growing the sport of sailing. His expertise and commitment to excellence will help U.S. Sailing continue its growth. Well, it hasn't grown much at all, but it needs to regroup and continue its growth and outreach, ensuring a bright future for the sport in the U.S. Good quote. Enright's leadership has earned him widespread recognition within the sport and beyond. In addition to his success on the water, he has been a vocal advocate for sustainability in the sailing world. In 2023, Enright was named Rolex Yachtsman of the Year after he won the Round the World race, one of the highest honors in our sport, at least in this country. For having demonstrated on-the-water excellence at international and national events, earning his place in the history of sailing. He was also inducted into the Brown University Athletics Hall of Fame. He sailed collegiately at Brown University. He's a Rhode Island boy. And that was in 2024 for his outstanding achievements there. Enright graduated from Brown with a degree in you got a degree in business and econ, Julia.
Great.
He served, and Brown's a great school, eh?
Yes, it is.
Wouldn't you agree?
It is.
It's not Stanford.
Oh, it's Stanford in its own right.
But it's an Ivy.
Yeah.
Do you know who else of fame went to Brown, a sailor?
No.
Ted Turner.
Oh, good.
And you know what?
What?
He was excused from further participation. Do you know why?
It was sailing too much.
No, he wasn't sailing enough. Allegedly for a panty raid on a women's dorm.
Oh.
I'm not kidding.
Well,
the people in the chat will confirm that. I hope Charlie wasn't involved. There probably weren't. They were all co-ed dorms in I'm sure, in Charlie's time. But he did serve as captain of that Brown University sailing team, and he was named 4-time honorable mention All-American co-ed skipper, where he honed his leadership skills and deepened his passion for the sport. Well, he is a leader of men and women. We know that from his sailing successes. We'll see how he is sailing a desk. I'm honored and excited to take on the role of CEO, Charlie said. Throughout my career, I've been fortunate to witness the incredible impact that sailing can have on individuals, teams, and entire communities. I look forward to building on U.S. sailing's legacy, working with our dedicated team to grow the sport, and ensuring that sailing remains accessible, inclusive, sustainable, and fun for generations to come. What a great quote in a press release, Julia.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Okay, now, more importantly was this article by our longtime friend Dave Reed, who's the editor of Sailing World, and he interviewed Charlie, I guess, Sunday, and Charlie, and then posted this article yesterday. Charlie Enright to lead U.S. sailing, and he calls him executive director when his title's really chief executive, but same difference. After a months-long and nationwide search for a new executive director, U.S. Sailing found the right candidate right at home in Bristol. And why Dave Reed said that is because Charlie is from Rhode Island. He's living in Barrington, I think. He and his wife lives in Barrington, which is the next suburb up the shore of Narragansett Bay. And the U.S. Sailing Office, which in my time was in Newport proper. Hey, Charlie, move it back to Newport. Move it to the spiritual heart of sailing where everybody's passing through Newport so they don't have to drive a half an hour up to Bristol. Yeah, they've got nice, more or less free offices up there. It's next to the Harrisoff Maritime Museum.
Oh, that'd be good.
And Billy Lynn. But the nice thing, it's in really the next Providence suburb. It's a suburb of Providence, Rhode Island, on the east side of Narragansett Bay, Bristol, Rhode Island, which is where the offices are. But I digress. Let's go back to the article by Dave Reed in Sailing World. For Enright, a Brown U business economics major 08, settling in behind the big desk at U.S. Sailing's HQ and leading an organization with a diverse constituency of nearly 36,000 members. Those of you outside of the U.S. will wonder, why does a country so large have only 36,000 members of its NGB? Will take some serious personal adjustment. He's been a pro sailor his entire adult life and has raced around the world 3 times with the Ocean Race. He's only 40 years old, which would make him U.S. Sailing's youngest executive director by a lot. Sorry, Dave Reed, that is simply false. That's not true. And until he applied for the position, he says he'd never built a resume or gone through a traditional job interview process.
That's right.
And by the way, there have been at least 2 executive directors younger than that. I was executive director for 6 years, starting when I was 25. And Robbie Haynes, who was my successor after he won a gold medal in '84, and Robbie's a year or 2 younger than I, and he was not executive director very long. He only lasted a year or so. But he was only, tell me what, 32-ish when Robbie Haynes was the executive director. So, Dave, that wasn't quite accurate. Not that it really matters. He is young, and that's good. That is he, Charlie.
Oh, it is.
Everything I've done before has been pretty entrepreneurial in nature, so applying for the job was definitely a new thing for me. Honest comment, Enright says. And to be honest, I wasn't sure what I was signing up for, but the more I went through the process, the more excited I became.
It is, and should be entrepreneurial.
Well, and you as a headhunter would know more than any of us what it takes and what it will take and the kind of person they should have been looking for.
Yeah, he'll need a little coaching on the management of volunteers, but
well, you should give it to him. He should call you up, Julia. I'm not kidding. I'm not teasing. Yeah. I think that, and I love his sentiments here. I love his quotes that Dave Reed got from him. Quote, I think the first couple months are really about listening to the constituents, the partners, the stakeholders, the board, and the membership. And I'm sure there will be plenty of people, that should be who will tell me that's what's great, and plenty of people who will tell me what definitely needs to change. But we'll be focusing on core competencies first, understanding what we do well and what we don't do well, and just steering the ship from there. There's fundraising, right, and restoring Olympic success, correct, while continuing the good work that's done in education, training, and programming. There's a lot, and indeed there is.
Yes.
I like the quote.
Yes.
Enright follows the non-sailing CEO, who, like Voldemort, shall remain nameless, Enright follows the non-sailing CEO. I wish you should have used that in this article. Who came to the organization, Dave's very polite here, came to the organization with a career in professional sports and entertainment properties. He's president of the Detroit Pistons basketball team. While not a sailor, that is Voldemort, while not a sailor and wholly unfamiliar with the sport on his first day, and it's Ostfield, by the way, isn't it? Not Ostfeld. Isn't it, Dave Reed? Did I get that wrong? Isn't it Ostfield? Is credited with professionalizing the organization. But still, the sentiment often heard around docks was that U.S. sailing would be better served by someone more intimate with the sport. In other words, with somebody who is a bloody sailor, not a non-sailing CEO.
Yes.
But I digress. Enright certainly comes with plenty of street cred, connections, and proven leadership. Well said. Quote, the money quote, arguably, this from Charlie, you want people to want to be part of it. You certainly don't want membership to feel like it's a tax. Right. You don't want to have to feel like you're compelled to join to get insurance or to be a judge or whatever,
right.
Enter a regatta. You want to feel like you're getting something for it. And nowadays, folks that are registering for certain regattas and have to join, they will join. Professional sailors join for the health insurance. Some join benevolently or for any other reason, but we have to make people want to join and understand why they are joining.
Mm-hmm.
You can clap, Julia. Bravo, Zulu.
Yes.
It's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
When I was executive director, people wanted to join. They wanted to pay us $30 or $35, whatever the annual dues were, but they could also give us a lot more if they wanted to, and they did because they liked the organization and liked what we were doing, and I hope they do, and I hope Charlie has that same success. He certainly has the right attitude.
Can't forget the fun.
Well, and it should be fun for everybody. Exactly right. He should have fun. The staff should have fun.
Right.
Exactly right. Getting the U.S. Olympic sailing team. Now, this is Dave Reed, but he's right. On a united path for the LA Olympic Regatta in 3 years is a monumental task, and it's not one in which Enright can have much impact this late in the cycle. I don't think that's correct. I think he can have a huge impact. All he's got to do is go to the so-called stakeholders, America One Racing, Dawn Riley and co. at Oak Cliff, Larry Kennedy, if you're on here watching, the New York Yacht Club and their foundation, their sailing foundation, St. Francis Yacht Club Foundation, bring them all back in, put your arms around them, have a big hug, and other clubs that have, the clubs up in Scout Country who've made such big contributions to various Olympic teams, the clubs down in Florida like Lauderdale Yacht Club, like Texas Corinthian Yacht Club, and many others.
Yeah.
Put your arms around them, bring them in and say, hey, run the Olympic program for us. I, Charlie Enright, don't want to run it. My board really should not be running it. You experts ought to run it. That's what he should do. It's a situation I know enough about to be dangerous, he says. Everything I hear usually comes with a slant or perspective, if you will. So I really try to remain neutral. We are where we are. For me, today is like day zero, so it's really about how we're going to get better, unquote. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, Charlie says his priorities will focus on fundraising, restoring the reputation of the organization, and really bringing the trust back to the members of the sailing community. Also continuing to highlight and improve all the things that U.S. Sailing has done well for a long, long time: the programming, education, the training, the certification, the ratings, the offshore office. He doesn't mention anything about race management, but race management, judges, race officers, and that training and management is really crucial as well. Mm-hmm. Now, here is a one hears, Julia.
Uh-oh.
One hears that, and we reported this some weeks or months ago even, that U.S. Sailing lost $2 million in 2023. One hears they also lost $2 million, give or take, in 2024. Now, the hope is that Charlie can do the fundraising and will do the fundraising, and no doubt he will do some fundraising. And he's plenty well connected through 11th Hour Racing with people who are affluent and beyond. And let's hope he can right the ship fiscally, financially, cut the staff down, bring the budget back. And the president has said that's his number one goal, to bring the budget back into balance. And hopefully he will do all of that. Finally, To be available and accessible and understanding is really important with this job. Good point. Am I going to go around the world again next week? Probably not. Damn sure he's not. But am I still going to do some Grand Prix sailing? You bet. Good. We want an active sailing CEO. But I'm also excited to do some more dinghy sailing and some family sailing. My kids are getting into junior sailing, so I'm going to be out there and around, which I think is really important. Dave Reed wrote that article for Sailing World, the editor and longtime friend. Well done. Bravo, Zulu. All around, Julia.
Indeed.
Comments, thoughts, Julia?
No, it sounds really good.
I hope so. Comments in the chat. Alan Long, here's the first good piece of news. Alan Long will have to reconsider my membership with U.S. Sailing. It's exactly what you want to hear, right. Julia? Ed Worley says, I would suggest to Charlie to reach out to all the yacht clubs and listen to them and perhaps have regional meetings with the yacht club flag officers and members. Yeah, just reinvigorate the so-called YRAs, Ed Worley, or what they now call, instead of yacht racing associations, the so-called CSAs.
Where's the
or say RS, Regional Sailing Association, the RSAs instead of the YRA.
Yeah.
Clark Chapin, great theory, but USOPC would never allow that sort of an arrangement, maybe in decades past, but not in the 21st century. What Clark is referring to is my comment of putting your arms around that group that I described, the so-called stakeholders in the Olympic, and letting them run it. Well, Clark, yes, they will allow it. They'll allow anything that leads to medals. All they care about really is medals. Yeah, and they care about DEI and governance. But if Charlie Enright goes to Colorado Springs and says, excuse me, USOPC, which is our National Olympic Committee, here's how I'm going to run it. I'm going to keep my hand in the till. I'm going to keep on top of the spending. I'm going to be sure everything is on the up and up. And my board will do the same. But we're going to get the experts back running our Olympic program. Clark Chapin, I respectfully submit that USOPC, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, would be out of their minds with joy. So let's hope. What else? Congratulations. You received 100 messages already. A proper sailing CEO arrives at the 11th hour. Very good, Ted Ryman.
Yes,
very
indeed.
clever. Very clever. Any other comments? Fritz Mueller down in Miami, would be interesting for him to connect with Alistair, meaning Alistair Murray, I suspect, about how to successfully run a great program in a geographically challenging land. Yeah, Australia's as big as we are. And Alistair's shown how to do that with his state yachting federations. He goes around and has the forum, and he's told us about that many times on this show, and I completely agree. Kenny, meaning Kenny Reed, is focused on selling sails to maxis. Yeah, no, I think Charlie, and I'm going to get behind him. Any advice or help I can give you, Charlie. And I just say one more thing. They got some serious financial problems, but Charlie's patron saint has been Wendy Schmidt, who founded, Charlie's a co-founder, but Wendy Schmidt is the money behind 11th Hour Racing, which sponsored his round the world effort and more. Wendy Schmidt, whom I know from out here, her estranged husband was chairman of Google. And I think they're still technically married, but I'm not sure they're an item, as you would say. Doesn't matter. I don't care. None of my business. But Wendy Schmidt is exceedingly bright, very committed to sailing, very committed to the green aspect of the world and our beloved sport. And she's got plenty of dough. She's been doing J-boats and, as Andrew McIrvin knows, big boats, I mean, maxis, and many more. So let's hope she gets involved. Clark Chapin, I'd say the rift between U.S. Sailing and A1 Racing needs to be repaired, but USOP's requirement for 10-year athlete representation is now, that's fine. You can do 10-year immutable. That's still 10-year athlete representation. Have athletes representatives. Of course, World Sailing does all. Everybody's required by the IOC and should be. We should have lots of current active or recently active athletes involved in our Olympic programs, and do. But that doesn't mean you can't have other people involved as well, the way it happened when I was executive director. We had plenty of current and recent active athletes involved then too, including on the board of U.S. Sailing. Okay.
Okay.
This day in history, Julia.
Yes.
What happened? not the Titanic. We've covered that. It's actually yesterday, the 14th of April, 1828.
1828.
And there is an obscure but nonetheless real connection to yachting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
To, I wouldn't exactly call it yachting.
1828.
Here's your first clue, Julia.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
No idea? Famous oratory? What do when you're
Orator?
Orator. Thank you, Julia. Thank God we have somebody here in this show who went to Stanford. Noah?
Webster?
Well done, Julia. Ding, ding, ding. You get applause for that. Noah Webster, 1758 to 1843.
Yeah.
It's your first clue. What did he do? Anybody know?
Made the first dictionary.
I'm amazed. You got it. You got it. Toyota, you got it. Toyota. What's that commercial? What was the dictionary called?
A dictionary.
An American Dictionary of the English Language in 1828. On this date, he got the, I think it was on this date that he got the patent for the copyright for it. 2-volume dictionary by American lexicographer. How do you pronounce that? Lexicographer.
Yeah, lexicographer.
Lexicographer. Noah Webster. You can tell I didn't rehearse any of this. He began work on it in 1807 and completed it in France and England. You all over there helped him in 1824-25, producing a 2-volume lexicon containing 12,000 words and 30,000 to 40,000 definitions that had not appeared in any earlier dictionary.
Wow.
So these are Americane words, probably spelled like the Americanes spelled them, not spelt, not spelt, spelled. And not rumor, O-U-R, but rumor. Oh. Harbor, not harbor, but harbor, from the spoken language. He based it on the principle that word usage should evolve from the spoken language. The work was attacked for its Americanism, or unconventional preferences in spelling and usage, as well as for its inclusion of non-literary words, literary. I got to exercise my jaw before these shows, especially technical terms in the arts and sciences. Stand by. Despite harsh criticism, the work sold out 2,500 copies in the U.S. and 3,000. You Brits were buying them up. The English were buying them up in a little over a year. It was relatively unpopular thereafter. However, despite the appearance of the second corrected edition in 1840, and the rights were sold to, ta-da, Merriam-Webster, George and Charles Merriam, which became the Merriam-Webster. So there you go. Now you have it, but there's more. Plagiarized, Ted Ryman says, the Oxford Dictionary, no doubt. Ed Worley says he speaks both English and Americane. What's whilst Mark Holland is saying, how did he spell color? He wasn't the orator. That was Daniel Webster. Thank you, Clark Chapin. That's exactly right. He was also a bit of an orator, actually. Webster was as well. Morocco bound. Who's Morocco bound? Or it was bound in Morocco? The volume? The volume was Morocco bound. But Julia, wait, there's more.
Uh-oh.
First of all, yes, that's what happened on yesterday, the 14th of April, 1828. Noah Webster registers the copyright. That's what he did for the publication of the first American dictionary, an American dictionary of the English language. That's what happened. Thanks to Britannica for all of that. Now, Julia,
sir,
they kept revising the thing and putting in other more descriptive elements, including graphics. This is from not the original version, but shortly thereafter, and he took the most important things in life.
That's amazing.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And defined the stays, the rigs, the color's ensign, the hold, the keel, the screw propeller, the rudder, the spanker boom.
I've never seen that.
Haven't either. This is what happens when you produce this show. You learn things. The bowsprit, the jib boom, and the flying jib boom. The martingale out there in front. I never heard of the martingale. And there is the figurehead, of course, but we would have called that the dolphin striker in modern day, right?
No.
The bow cutwater cable. I didn't know about that. Now look at that. Look at the detail of that engine.
Mm.
I don't know if it's better seen there. I think on the slide it's better seen. But there is the keel, and there is the hold, the keel, and there's a engine down there and a screw propeller just ahead of the rudder.
Mm-hmm.
He already had knowledge of that and was in his, I guess, the second edition of his dictionary.
Mm.
You can't beat a spanker Pedro Fleming.
Mm-hmm.
Looks to be aground. Now, for extra credit, Julia,
Yes.
what was the first boat to have a screw propeller, the first sailing
Oh,
unit?
I have no idea.
Oh, come on. There it is. To all of you in the chat, yeah, it was a Bob Hope joke, the road to Morocco. Road to quote, we are like Webster's Dictionary, Morocco bound.
Mm-hmm.
What boat is that, Julia?
I know, it's good looking though.
That is, any of you in the chat know?
It got to be a mail boat.
It's an English boat.
Is it a mail boat?
Nope.
Oh.
It was for moving freight around. And passengers. Nobody in the chat. No, it's not the Great Britain. It is the precursor, actually. A lot of the mechanics made it into the Great Britain, Ted Ryman. Well, that was a good guess. A really good guess. Anybody else? Warrior? Nope. Nope. Okay, the answer is the SS Archimedes was a steamship built in Britain in 1839. So just,
Yeah.
12 years before the America's Cup Zero, AC0 in 1851. She was the world's first steamship to be driven successfully by a screw propeller. So not the Great Britain. The Great Britain was the boat that was kind of the next one after this one that was improved. And this boat sailed, and it got races with both, they had, what do you call those, side wheels on steamships before the screw propeller. And she had races against boats with side wheels and sailing boats, and it was quite a deal. The screw propeller, Clayton Embley would know, he's the captain of a big fleet of ferries, boats in the Kentucky area. The screw propeller was designed by John Erickson. He also designed the first Marine Head and the USS Monitor. You know what the USS Monitor was, Julia? Ironclad. It was a Civil War boat, right?
Yeah, warboat.
And it's not the America. It looks a little bit like the America, doesn't it, with a swept-back mast, Jonathan Frank? Peter Bretschker would have never guessed the Archimedes. Must have been the Archimedes screw then, Andrew Pindar is asking. These guys are all so smart.
I know.
That implies that there were previous ships that were not driven successfully by a screw propeller. Yeah, I wonder about that. Clark Chapin is saying, the engineer that he is. Apparently that's true, that there were some that didn't work so well.
And Archimedes invented this screw propeller.
Yes, I see that from from Mr. Doctor.
Mueller.
Oh, Fritz Mueller said that, right. Okay, well, look at all the paddle wheels. Looks like the vessel that sank Nemo's Nautilus. Alan Long. What was Webster's published definition of the word? Oh, stingray. Julia, that deserves a wag. Come on, give him the wag. That is not correct. I'm not even going to read it. Are you? Stingrays. What was Webster's published definition of the word screw?
Yeah.
Oh, stingray. Okay, so much for what happened on, well, not this day, but yesterday in history. And let's now go to a finger wag indeed. Let's go to this fabulous graphic that Richard Gladwell did. He's been teaching me this week, by the way, how to use AI.
Oh, good. To
generate graphics like that, and what website to use and how to say it and how to modify it. And thank you, Richard, for your tutelage, if that's the right word.
Yeah, I've been sort of staying away from it, but it's got to be great.
You know who else is really good at that? Speaking of Stingray, he has been producing, he goes to ChatGPT and says, hey, produce me a story, an essay about the Cup leaving Auckland, as an example. I'm not sure he's done that.
Right.
And be sure to include Grant Dalton and be sure to include Julia Vadekind. And out comes this thing that'll say, with some degree of accuracy, Grant Dalton is the head of this and that, and he was criticized by Julia Vadekind of Sailing Illustrated for taking the cup out of Auckland, for example.
Right.
But Stingray can tell you more about it. But he's gotten quite good at this at this Chat GPT AI large language model. Oh, let's do a Tom Eamon doll. Well, they did do Richard Gladwell, and I haven't put it in the show, but he did do another graphic of this cup being a tug of war between Dalton and Pete Burling. That's quite good. Yeah, Andrew McIrvin. He's talking about our new education secretary. Okay, so what is this all about? Well, this is my new graphic for AC 38 Cup Days. We're now 1 hour into the show. Julia, we're going to get into this whole cup business now, including my reveal of some, I think, absolutely croutonic, it's worse than croutonic information. First of all, let's go back and revisit this topic. We told you on Friday that we had just learned, everybody had just learnt, as you Brits would say, that Peter Burling had split with Team New Zealand, pushed by time pressures, says Grant Dalton. And I think Grant was very straightforward and very to the point, and he said, look, we ran out of time, and I withdrew the offer to Pete. Pete was very gracious in everything. And we still haven't seen a big interview or a big statement from him by him other than the one I ran on Friday, which was off his Facebook page, was just brief and terse. And it wasn't unpleasant.
Well, it was nice.
It was nice, wasn't it?
Pete Burling was talking about how wonderful the experience has been.
Exactly. Well said. But and this is sad. I agree, John Emmett. It's sad for all concerned, mostly because this was the chance for someone to now win 4 cups to skipper and win 4 cups as skipper and do it as a 4-peat, 4 in a row, which no one's ever done. Now, an article that, frankly, I didn't think was all that nice was Magnus the Magnificent's article today, and he very firmly took, on his Rule 69 blog, took the side of Grant Dalton. I wonder why. Mm-hmm. And he said this is a Mexican standoff. Pete Burling's crazy move to try and out-bluff Emirates Team New Zealand backfired spectacularly. And I'm not going to quote from the article. You can go read it, but I still tell you should have a subscription to his Magnus the Magnificent, Magnus Wheatley's Rule 69 blog, Substack. It's good. It's on Substack. But today's article just, I think, completely went way off to the Grant Dalton side of the coin, blaming it all on Pete, saying that Pete was in some big Mexican standoff negotiation and that Dalton called his bluff and said, okay, well, if you want that much money, you ain't going to get it, and send him packing. Well, there may be some of that. Some of that may be true, Julia.
Yes.
But, and we'll find out in due course. But I know one thing for sure, and you got to give Grant Dalton credit for running such a good team on such a shoestring budget. But, Pete would know how much Jimmy Spithill was being paid, and Tom Slingsby, and Ben Ainsley was paying himself, and on and on and on. And he's, his numbers, one hears, this is not the big reveal. Yeah. One hears pale by comparison. He said, hey, I've won this thing for you now 3 times. You want me to stay? You got to pay me for it. Yeah. And apparently that was not happening, and the offer was withdrawn. But I really thought Magnus went over the top on this in favor of Grant Dalton and was a bit uncharitable to Pete Burling. I also am hearing, and I was actually thanked for the comment I made on Friday's show about saying, he's a family man and a good family man. And he and his wife and fairly new daughter, born, a year ago, in February last year, Paloma, I believe is her name, the daughter. But he married his longtime partner, Lucinda Nelson, in 2023. But I hear once the decision was made that it would not, the Cup, AC 38, would not be in Auckland, he said, I don't want to go offshore for yet another Cup. Remember, he was offshore in 17, Bermuda. Mm-hmm. He was back onshore in 21, but it was COVID, so it wasn't all that much fun.
Mhm.
And then he's offshore again in 2024 for Barcelona. And when Dalt said it's not going to be here in Auckland, he said, you know, I got a wife and a kid, plus I got Sail GP. Yeah. And Magnus goes on at great length about that, and I think he's right. But I want to be a good father and a good parent. And, you know, life is, after all, at some point too short.
Yes.
So if it were in Auckland, I suspect he would have stayed. Cost of living is less in New Zealand, to travel, moving around. But who wants to go live in, tell me where, but especially if it ends up being in KSA, who wants to go live there? It's one thing to go there for a week for a pre-regatta, preliminary regatta, but to go there for, you know, live there for 6-8 months, train there for a year, I don't get it.
Well, it might be a good adventure.
My violin isn't huge, Yarvahe is saying. He's also, I think, on Dalton's side. Learnt, is that from Webster's? Alan Locke said. Replying to Andrew McIrvin, you cannot get an appointment unless you are incompetent in this subject. What appointments are they talking about? Okay, they're still making jokes about screws. Ryman saying Pete needs a British passport so he can join Ben & Co. at the next AC. Well, I have news about that, Mr. Ted Ryman. Clark Chapin reminds me of the scene from North Dallas 40, which is a film here about NFL football in this country, when the quarterback is negotiating with a team owner and says, how come every time I say it's a game, you tell me it's a business, and every time I say it's a business, you tell me it's a game? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Yarvahe is not on Dalton's side in this. Okay.
Right.
You only have a short time to spend with your kids when they are little. Do not miss it. Ed Worley saying, totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. So, for whatever reason, that thing has apparently come apart. Although, you know what? It could still get repaired. Who knows? It could still get repaired. I'd love to see Pete have a crack at winning 4 in a row. I don't know Pete all that well, frankly, but I just think the world of him, and by all accounts, all of you who do know him well, just say he's really good. Is he as good as Nathan Outeridge? He wasn't. Pete didn't have great starts. It's a professional sport. We can call a spade a spade. Maybe Nathan was better, as it seemed to be hinted in the press release from Mr. Dalton, that, you know, interfacing, and some of the things Magnus has said as well, interfacing with the design team is really important. Mm. In fact, arguably the most important part of the America's Cup is the interface between the sailing team and the design team. Mm-hmm. Because I've said it on this show before, I've sat in meetings ad nauseum for the last 40 plus years where the sailing team and the design team agree to go out and test this. And then they go out and test it. The sailing team comes back in and says, oh, it felt, okay. And the design team says, yeah, but the instruments and the data that we got back say one says black, the other says white. Or, the trust starts to break down a little bit. Or the sailing team says, those guys are nuts. Instead of us doing what they've asked us to test, let's test this instead and see how that works, especially in the days before data and a whole lot of sensors all over the yacht. And then we'll go back in and tell them we did what you asked us to do and ask the design team, well, how did it perform? How did it look? And then the trust further breaks down. And I've seen worse.
Yeah.
I've seen, it goes on. Burling will get paid a lot by some other challenger to spill the beans about how ETN's system worked and linked. So as a coach, yeah. There's some fault tonight as we're getting Ed and Hamish are watching repeatedly. I don't know what that means. Checking 1, 2, 3. There's no audio fault, is there? Or watching repeat. I think that's a joke. Instruments can only give you data. The sailor can feel how the yacht actually feels, Ed Worley is saying. Indeed. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I got a video on one of the most likely venues. If you believe that it is likely to be in Athens, as Mr. Dalton apparently and others keep reporting. Why would it be in Athens? Well, I think I have the answer to that, and I think Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin has some ideas about who some of the big rich guys behind that, one in particular, might be, because he's involved in maxi racing and big boat sailing from Greece. But there's more. There's a move afoot, as I told you on Friday's show, to make that area south and west of downtown Athens, down around the old airport, around the Olympic Marina into a Riviera of Greece, into a Dubai of Greece. Have a look.
Athens, a city with deep history and a key part of Western civilization, is now undergoing the biggest urban redevelopment in all of Europe. As part of this project, Greece is building its tallest skyscraper, but that's just a small piece of the mega plan. The goal is to compete with Dubai's high-end developments, but with much more green space instead of a desert landscape. Hey, I'm your host Regis, and today we look at this more than 20-year-old plan finally being realized and put it under the microscope to see if it really is as unique as it promises. Before we can really understand this massive new mega project, we need to take a look at Greece and Athens for a few moments. Landmarks make their cities distinguishable in an instant, but Athens might be the most recognizable European city, even without the imposing Parthenon. A look at any random part of the city's panorama easily reveals its identity. The light building colors, their uniform height, and the constant concrete and stone make Athens seem antique, even when cars, drones, and LED billboards are buzzing. For over 2,500 years, Greeks have valued the agora, an open space for gathering and discussion. But today, Athenians often struggle to find a shady spot for their meetups. Only 11% of the city's surface is covered by trees. That's almost rock bottom of all the European capitals, none of which need the air and the shade more than the southernmost continental capital in all of Europe. In 2007, citizens had to endure a record high temperature of 44.8 degrees Celsius. A quarter of the trees in the mountains surrounding the urban center have sadly been lost in the last 6 years. The situation is so dire that the mayor even announced a plan to plant 25,000 trees in the next 5 years. The rapid population boom of Athens in the last 190 years also didn't leave much room for sufficient planning. Back then, the city only counted about 4,000 people. When looking at satellite images today, it's hard to find any spots of green. And this is where the Ellinikon comes in, to give the Greek capital a new pair of lungs. Though some describe it as a brand new standalone city, Ellinikon is actually a new neighborhood being built in the southern suburbs of Athens. And it's a pretty big one at that. After all, it's being developed on the land of this abandoned airport. An area of 6.2 square kilometers, just slightly smaller than Gibraltar, is about to become an oasis for a city that desperately needs it. Ellinikon means Hellenic, or Greek, and will offer more than just a green urban space. It will have everything a modern place of living needs to have. A mixture of residential, commercial, cultural, sporting, tourist, and educational facilities. The site will also become home to the tallest skyscraper in Greece and the Mediterranean, in addition to a total of around 6,500 new apartments. Those will be balanced by 2.5 square kilometers of green open space, which is about 75% the size of New York's Central Park. All of this will increase the amount of green space in the Athens metropolitan area by a whopping 44%. As of the making of this video, over 900 trees and 80,000 different regional plants have already been planted. The total goal is set at 31,000 trees from 86 different species and over 1 million Mediterranean native plants. For comparison, the just mentioned Central Park has only 18,000 trees. Athens' jam-packed metropolitan area has nearly 3 million people living in it. Hence, it's kind of confusing that the Ellinikon area hasn't been used so far, especially given that it's
Okay, I think you get the idea, and I don't need to run the rest of this another 9+ minutes in this. Well, I think a little less than that now, but it's an idea. It's been on the apparently on the planning stages for quite some time, and if it's really going to happen, it's not going to happen anytime soon. But there is another billionaire, as you said, Steve Adkins, another billionaire heaven or haven, big fence, and it's a big undertaking. Yes, it's hot there. Any of you who were there for the 2004 Olympics, it's a bit of a deal. It was really hot, as several of you said in the comments, and we all know what the Mediterranean. I'm not going to generalize, but The lifestyle, I've lived on the Mediterranean for 10 years, and the lifestyle is different in, say, Valencia, Spain, compared to Hamburg, Germany, or London, England, or even San Francisco. So we shall see if Greece pulls this off anytime soon, but I suspect what Mr. Dalton is dealing with, Julia, is somebody who's part of this promotion and has the idea, well, the America's Cup will help, let's get it here, get it promoting this area, we'll run it in the marina, which exists, such as it is, and will help promote this whole development, and we'll do a big real estate development and maybe cut Mr. Dalton in big picture long term, and who knows.
Last time I was in Athens, it was right after the Olympics. I had been there, and everything was just deserted.
Well, the Olympic venues are all they're rusting and they're crumbling, but it's cool. But we're talking there. You saw it, 2037, and this is 2025 for a cup that they are hoping will be in 2027. Okay, now I've got another video here, Julia. This is what's going on in Jeddah as we speak. They're attempting to now, after a 5-year hiatus, they started building the tallest building in the world to compete with the building in Dubai. Now they're trying to get that underway again. Apparently they have, and hence this very brief video from Jeddah.
Designed to surpass all other skyscrapers in height, has recommenced construction in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, after a pause lasting 5 years. This impressive structure, intended to soar over 1 kilometer, 3,280 feet in height upon completion, promises to be an iconic landmark and a testament to modern engineering and architectural innovation. The resumption of construction signals progress towards achieving this ambitious feat, which is expected to redefine the skyline of Jeddah and establish a new benchmark in skyscraper design and construction globally.
Okay, so that's a quick video from Augie, created with Augie. I'm not even quite sure. Some of you engineering types might know what that is. But Jeddah has got plenty of dough, as you all know. They've hosted sailing events. They've hosted F1 events. They host other things, tennis, and this live golf in Saudi Arabia. But Jeddah is on the coast of the Red Sea. It's what they're trying to create, that whole new area there. We've shown you other presentations in the past, and they're hoping and expecting to turn that into the Riviera of the Middle East, not Mr. Trump's Gaza Riviera, not to be confused with that. Maybe that will turn into one too. But now, as Yarvahe says, he's nostalgic for Barcelona already, and I think Jonathan Frank gets the Stingray double entendre award for the day. Olivia Newton-John was pretty hot in Greece.
And she does.
Huh?
And she does.
Oh, my goodness. But we told you on Friday that they're, according to Richard Gladwell and others, we've been telling you about this for some time, but we ran part of Richard's story saying radical changes are touted for future America's Cups, and will they get traction this time? Well, that is the one-slide introduction to my reveal today having to do with the Cup. John Emmett is asking, what about Naples? I don't have a video about Naples. I've told you that Naples, as you know, they ran the Olympics there in the Bay of Naples, or the Gulf, what the locals call the Golfo di Napoli, in 1960, when the main Olympics were in Rome, and the sailing is great there. And some of you have been there when we ran the pre-America's Cup regatta there in I think 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got pictures of, I was hosting the events on the main stage, and and emceeing. It was a great event. I'll tell you, the sailing was good. The whole place was up and fired up, and they had people. The Italians are mad, keen, crazy about the Cup. It would be a great place to have the America's Cup in Italy, anywhere.
Yeah.
We had that regatta pre-regatta leading up to 07, the final one, I think. Well, maybe not the final one, but one of the latter stages was out in Sicily, in the northwest corner of Sicily. What was that called? Stintino? I can't remember what that was called. Somebody will remember in the chat. But it was a fabulous event, and they closed the schools. Actually, they started the schools 2 weeks early in August, September. They started 2 weeks early, and this regatta was, I think, in early October. so the kids could have 2 weeks off during the regatta.
Oh, that's nice.
And they did, the whole town and beyond.
Yeah.
I think everybody west of Sicily,
Yeah.
Palermo rather, came to this regatta in the northwest corner of Sicily. It was fabulous. And the Italians, as I say, as you probably all know, are mad, keen, crazy about the cup. It'd be great to have it in Italy, including in Naples. But are they got it together? Do they have the money? Can they pull it together, especially in 2 years' time, which is what Mr. Dalton is hoping to do? I doubt it. But apropos this slide, I'm not going to tell you what I'm hearing. And I had this morning, someone sent me the draft protocol. And this is a draft protocol which has just been circulated to the teams. In fact, I got 2 copies of it sent to me this morning. 2. Now, not only is it the draft protocol, but it is redlined. It is revision marked in red. Trapani, thank you, Andrew McIrvin. Trapani was that corner, was the town in the nice little town, northwest corner of Sicily, where we had that pre-regatta in, I guess, 06. I now have the draft protocol for AC 38. Between talking with various of you this morning about other stuff, I barely had time to digest it all, but I did. I've read through it once. And my first impression of the protocol is that it's an abomination. And Julie Aarons, you can call Grant Dalton up and quote me. It's an abomination. This protocol, which presumably has been signed off on by Royal Yacht Squadron at DBA, the Challenger of Record, is so far out there, so far contrary to the deed of gift, so helpful to the defender, as so tipped so much in favor of the defender. It's breathtaking. In fact, it would be hilarious if it were not so sad for the cup and hence the sport. Russell Green, who's presumably the author of this, no doubt at the behest of Mr. Dalton. I mean, this is not Russell doing this on his own. But I'm not sugarcoating it, Clark. This is the most breathtakingly, the biggest power grab in the history of the cup since I've been involved since 1980. So 45 years. To wit, they're still calling for it to be in 2027, but not really telling anybody anytime soon. Oh, they say, we'll have the protocol approved and out by June. But they also obviously are worried about the Challenger of Record falling out of bed, because for the first time ever, there is a provision in this protocol. And again, it's so easy for me to tell the differences because it's revision marked, it's redlined, taking the AC 37 protocol and it's revision marked against that AC 37 protocol. So I can see the changes that are contemplated. The first of which is that if the Challenger, well, the first of many, and I'm not doing this in any order, but I haven't even had time to make notes. So I'm doing this from having my read through this morning and digesting it. If the Challenger of Record falls out of bed, there is now a provision in the protocol for replacing the Challenger of Record, not by the next team that comes in that challenges, but the defender can appoint a new Challenger of Record. The defender can appoint a new Challenger of Record, anybody.
Best way to win.
And obviously they would just go and say, well, if you don't agree with what we're laying out here, we're not going to appoint you Challenger of Record. Okay, a little bit of that happens with the hip pocket challenge. But that's just completely outside the deed of gift, first of all, and it's completely croutonic and ridiculous and more. Next thing is that there's a rule that is we'll come to the nationality clause, but it says that the yachts for the AC 38 need not be built in the country of the club they represent, completely outside the deed of gift. Now, some of you will argue, those of you who are rules and deed mavens, they'll say, well, you've always interpreted the built-in country rule a little bit, which we have done, but we've never just completely scrapped it. You've always said, well, for the purposes of the deeds built-in country rule, it means that this part of that part, which are commonly available around the world, you can use those. That's been going on since, the 70s, 80s. No problem. But to say that the boat need not be built in the country of the club it represents means that somebody can build all the boats for the cup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Sail GP here. I'm talking about, the Defender maybe building boats for other teams so they can get some teams in. It's completely contrary to the spirit and to the letter of the America's Cup and the Deed of Gift. The nationality rule is more strict than ever. In fact, there's what I'm going to call the Pete Burling rule. There's a Burling rule that says if you sailed with a team in I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but if you sailed with a team in AC 37, even if you're eligible because of multiple passports or whatever to sail for another team in AC 38, you can't. You can only sail for the team that you sailed with in AC 37.
And accept and name your prize.
Well, no, you have to stick with your team. You can't go sail with somebody else. Now, can they go coach? I think so. I haven't read it that carefully yet to go look through the nuances. But it goes on, and they're going to try to pull all this off between now and sometime they say in 2027, month to be determined, depending upon the northern or southern hemisphere rule, which they'll go around too. This thing is abomination is not too strong a word. I am not exaggerating at how bad this protocol is. And remember, I authored the first protocol back in leading up to the 92 event, called it the protocol. So I've seen them all, been a part of them all, yada, yada. But forget about me. Remember that New York Yacht Club, to their everlasting credit, they had a document that they issued prior to the match. The match would take place in September of tell me what year in Newport. And before that, they would issue a document called the Memorandum. Simple, clean, clear, the Memorandum. And it said that it is New York Yacht Club's intention that if we successfully defend, we will then defend the cup in Newport, Rhode Island, in 12-meter yachts, in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, 4 years, whatever. And they kind of laid out their thing. And then they say, you all challenge. Well, they had a hip pocket challenge, as it turns out, in the latter stages when it started to get a little competitive, and they had multiple challenges. And they'd say in that memorandum, we intend to have multiple challenges. But it was kind of a 2-page document. I sound like I'm from Michigan. I use kind of a all the time.
Yeah.
Kind of a 2-page. It was a 2-page document, more or less. Are we past time to pour Julia a stiff bourbon?
Oh, no.
Do you want one, Julia?
Ooh, I might wake up.
I'm going to rant. The rant's continuing. But wait, there's more. Are you enjoying this rant, Julia?
Yes.
You must be. You're still awake.
I know. That's enough.
That's some bourbon cream.
Mm-hmm.
Some bourbon cream from
Clayton Emily.
Clayton Emily, one of our FOSI here. Thank you, Clayton. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For that. If I were a drinker of alcohol, I would have put some of that in my cup too, because it's really good. I have tasted it. There's also a long part of this document saying that there will be, not for AC 37, but there will be contemplated a consortium, a general organizing body for AC 39, sorry, not for AC 38, but for AC 39, and that any team that challenges now would be a founding part of that group that would then run the America's Cup a la the IOC or the NFL or any other governing body. Completely impossible to do within the deed of gift. You simply can't do that. And by the way, if you do challenge this time and don't agree to that and don't agree to use the AC 75 next time, it's a $20 million fine, 20 million euro fine.
But the current crop can't predetermine what the next one's got to do.
Of course not. And we've said that exactly right, Joe. We've said that over and over. You can't do that. You cannot, the current trustee cannot bind the hands of a future trustee. That is any future trustee.
Yeah.
And that is New York. That's clear law under New York trust and deed law. But speaking of that, even though in the assignment and acceptance, there's a document that you sign that goes back to New York when they lost the cup in '83, the lawyers at New York Yacht Club created a document called Assignment and Acceptance that said, you have won the cup, in this case, Royal Perth Yacht Club, and we New York, hereby assign the cup to you, and you accept it, the cup, on the following terms. It basically says you will agree to
Give it back.
Well, you'll agree to host it in accordance with the deed of gift, and if there's any disputes, they will be adjudicated in the courts of New York. And that assignment and acceptance, virtually the same document has carried on since then, since when Royal Perth assigned it to, and it was accepted by San Diego Yacht Club, and then from San Diego to the Kiwis, and then from the Kiwis, who won it after the Kiwis?
New Zealand.
Oh, they are the Kiwis. Who won it after New Zealand lost at Alinghi?
Alinghi.
And then who won it after Alinghi? Golden Gate Yacht. That same assignment acceptance has been signed every time, including by Grant Dalton and the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron for the last time they won it, which was when they won it away from the Golden Gate Yacht Club. And it says that any disputes will be adjudicated by the courts of New York, because under New York deed and trust law, that has to be the case. Well, this protocol at the end says that any disputes will be adjudicated by the courts in New Zealand. You can't. I mean, excuse me. So, and it goes on. I'm not even hitting some of the major ones, but that's just a quick outline. I'm going to go back and study it carefully, but it's just a pure and sheer power grab by Russell Green and Grant Dalton that takes your breath away. It's, as I said, it would be hilarious if it weren't so sad. And they're going to try to pull this off. They're going to try to force this down the throats of the challengers, whomever will challenge. And I suspect this is going to lead to an upset. I'm not going to call it any more than an upset. I suspect this is going to lead to something that makes 1988 and 2010 look like child's play, look like kindergarten.
One of the things that just struck me as I listened to it is that one of the things that made the America's Cup singular and in my mind is that it's always been backed by one person who or a somebody whose identity or corporation whose identity is to make it go, and it wasn't a community decision.
Well, it's the yacht club. It can't be. It is the host defender.
Right.
Is the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, and they're letting Mr. Dalton go do this whole thing, and then Mr. Dalton's trying to cut a deal with the squadron. And who knows? I mean, obviously, Mr. Dalton and Mr. Green, Russell Green, who was a protege of mine, I got him into umpiring and judging, and he and I did with Laurent Esquier, we did the 07 Cup together on behalf of Chris Dixon and Larry Ellison. So, I know Russell Green very, very well. He's a very smart guy, New Zealand lawyer. And, they're obviously concerned that the Royal Yacht Squadron may fall out of bed, may resign, because for the first time ever, as I told you at the top of this rant, there is a provision for the defender to replace the challenger of record. And by the way, if the challenger of record and the defender agree to change the class rule, they can do that as between the two of them in consultation with the other teams, of course. If they decide to change it after it's already been adopted and teams have already built their boats, they can do that in consultation with other teams, but they can do it as between the two of them. And on and on. I mean, there's just so many little, and if you just read it for the first time, and especially if you don't have a revision marked copy like I do, a red marked copy, you'd think, well, okay, this is, after the first, page, your eyes start to. But I, having drafted and redrafted and worked on these things ad nauseum for the last 45 years, I'll tell you other stories about protocol stories. It is sheer and Yarvahe, it's sheer and utter nonsense. This document is so bad. It is so far over the top. It is such a power grab by the defender. And the idea that they're going to do then a consortium out of AC-38 and try to bind future defender trust, it ain't going to happen. Russell Coots, if he's just hearing this for the first time, maybe somebody tipped off Russell and Larry, I'm telling you, they're going to be sitting there thinking this is the greatest thing because it's going to lead further to the demise of the America's Cup. Mm. But I'll make one last prediction and then I'll stop. We're an hour, 34 minutes into this show. I'll just tell you again, sorry to repeat, but this protocol is going to result in a 1988 or 2010 style controversy that will make 2010 look like child's play. Yarvahe wants to know, where can one find a leaked copy? Well, I am not going to leak it to anybody. I'm not going to tell you where I got it. As I said, I got 2 copies of it this morning. I mean, I got up thinking, Julie, I told you this when you came down here, we're going to have a nice, relaxed show. We're going to talk about this great news about Charlie Enright and a couple jokes and an AAAA.
Right.
And be done, and no angst, and no, it won't get my heart rate up, and yada, yada.
Yeah.
And instead, this comes in.
Yeah.
And I can't effing believe it when I started reading through it. And it's unbelievable we even had a show because I wanted to read it in detail. So I'm not going to tell you where I got it, either copy. I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. I can't spare a copy then because I've been asked not to send it. I'll tell you what the concern is. And I've seen this, and I've never done this. I wouldn't do this, but I've seen it in action. In fact, I'll tell you where. We were sitting in a San Diego Yacht Club boardroom, and the then Commodore, who's now long gone, he's a lawyer, he's long gone, he passed away many years ago. He was so untrusting of his board of directors that he was passing around a confidential document having to do with the America's Cup. And he sent a copy to everybody, but it was hand delivered to them at their homes in a manila envelope, and everybody got suspicious. This was after email had been long since invented. Why did you do that? Well, the past Commodore at the table, sitting around with the board and all of us saying, and he confronted the Commodore, he said, did you mark each of these documents differently so that if one of them leaked, you'd know who did it? And the Commodore had to admit, yes, that's true. And the whole board at that point lost confidence in the Commodore. They lost. I had no idea he'd done this or that anybody would ever do something like that to their own board. And that's the concern here. If I were to pass this document out and even if you just change one comma or one semicolon or something on one page of the document, because they've marked each one differently. And then they say, well, Eamon's got a copy. How did he get it? Oh, let's go through and look and see where our marks are. The watermark, as Fog Machine calls it. Who knows? Julia, what do you think of all that? Personalized copies, Yarvahe is saying, yeah. Okay. So I think this ends up in the New York courts, sadly. I think this, unless Royal New Zealand.
What a waste of time and money. Oh.
Exactly. And maybe Royal New Zealand Yacht Squad, and maybe this is why the Commodore quit. You know, Julie Ahrens keeps telling us, no, it's for personal reasons. There was other problem. But maybe this is one of the reasons why Jillian Williams quit. It wasn't just not having the cup in Auckland. Maybe she was so upset by some of this stuff in this draft protocol if she was party to it. But if the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron doesn't get control of this thing, and meaning Mr. Dalton and Grant Dalton and Russell Green, keep trying to prosecute this, keep trying to promulgate, keep trying to push this protocol, there's some alliteration, on the rest of the challengers. I think you're gonna see something that we haven't seen since 2010.
Or a complete just.
Well, no, the challengers aren't going to stand by, I don't think. If I were a challenger and if I were a lawyer with I'd say, hey, we're going to take him, we're going to win this.
Right.
And it won't cost even that much. It's just going to take a year or two. So who knows? I hope not. I hope that the squadron, Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, comes to its senses. I hope that they go back to a proper, normal protocol and that they abide by the deed of gift and not try to write all these rules and turn in the cup into something else that it's not.
Mhm.
Ben Nichols on a pause. Charlie E is a master stroke appointment. Yeah, Ben Nichols, I agree. And by the way, I hear that the Royal Yacht Squadron has given, I'm not going to bet my life on it, but I'm pretty sure the Royal Yacht Squadron has given a notice to Sir Ben Ainslie that if you don't have sponsorship by the 1st of June, we're not going to go forward as your challenging club. We're going to withdraw or resign. But we'll see. Rhode Island Rover, yes, they have ruined the cup. This might cause a rip in the fabric of the space-time continuum, Clark Chapin says. Julie Ahrens is she's not on the show here. I don't see her. I thought she was earlier.
She was.
She's probably on the phone with Mr. Dalton. You can't believe what Eamon is saying. He's got a copy of the protocol. Very disappointing if the Royal Yacht Squadron are even thinking about this. Well, who knows? Where do we donate dollars to defend the cup in court? Christy Erickson Pryor, it's nice to have you on here. Long time, one of the great sailors from the America's Cup era and beyond. Terrific sailor. Nice to see her on here.
Julie Ahrens is on.
Is she on? What'd she say? Oh, I'm on. Okay, she's taking it all in. So when we told you, when we read this article on Friday, I had no idea this was going to happen. I had no idea this protocol that was so far out there, let alone was about to be circulated, and now it has been. And I told Richard that I had a copy. He, by the way, has written a very good editorial today before he knew I had a copy of the protocol and about all of the madness that's going on. Julie Ahrens says she can't comment on this. Okay. Stingray, that's a good question. Who the hell is negotiating for Athena Royal Yacht Squadron? Well, obviously not anybody with cojones or a sense of what the cup and the deed and the history and tradition and the legality is all about. Okay, enough? Anybody else have a comment before I close this rant, this ramping up rant?
Mhm.
Okay, enough. And as a couple of you said, this is the great news of the day, and we'll end with it after we get here to the D block. But hooray for Super Sailor Charlie Enright and as having been appointed CEO of U.S. Sailing. But we also have an AAAA. This is always good news from Alistair Murray. And he, with the Royal Naval Band, with Waltzing Matilda, he comes on with his report. I have another one from him, Julia,
Yeah.
in the can. But here's
Okay.
today's, Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote.
G'day, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. This is AAAA, Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote, being brought to you from sunny Melbourne. I want to talk to you today about foiling because there's a development that I've come across that I think is pretty exciting, and I'd love to see it go further. Foiling is now the pinnacle of sailing, as we all know, and so much ahead of it in terms of its development. It's really going to be a major part of our sailing picture. It's now the pinnacle in SailGP, obviously, which many of us enjoy. The America's Cup with those phenomenal foiling monohulls. The Olympics, where there's now foiling classes. AMOCAs, it's just revolutionised the world of sailing, and records are being broken everywhere. Of course, foiling captures junior sailors' imagination. They plot around in their Optis and 420s and displacement boats like that, or actually planing boats, but small boats and slow boats. And they look at these foiling machines and just think how wonderful it is. It captures their imagination and just think if we get them all sailing on foils and really going for it, how much it would do for their attachment to the sport. It would rapidly advance their skills to be sailing something a bit more challenging. It develops their mental agility and the way they think about sailing and the principles around it. It's good for their physical fitness. It'd be just great if we could get more kids foiling. Our Olympians of 2032 are now 9 to 15 years old, and it's highly likely they'll be sailing foiling classes, in Brisbane. And I think we need to come up with something that appeals to them. If you look at the classes that are available now, the foiling classes that are high performance and appealing to high performance sailors, you've got the Moth. I think the Moth is an absolutely amazing boat. It's revolutionised small boat sailing, but it's expensive and it's extremely difficult to sail, and obviously it's for adults only. So Andrew McDougall designed the Wasp, and I think that's an absolutely brilliant development. It's for adults mainly, but also for older youths. It solved a lot of the problems of difficulty and cost, being a lot less expensive than the Moth being one design. But not really for kids, actually for youths, but not for kids. So I want to tell you about a boat called the Nicky. It's designed by Bob and David French here from Melbourne. The average age of kids sailing this class is 13, and an equal number of girls and boys. And they've developed a bigger version as well called the Skeeter, which is for adults. And the biggest difference between the Nicky stroke Skeeter and the Moth and Wasp is that it's easier foiling due to a completely different operation of the main foil, and the fact that it's got a different hull form. It's a scow Moth type hull, and it's completely different. So when it lands, it lands on its flat surface and it comes back onto the foils. It's absolutely a lot easier to sail. So the Frenches have kicked off this Junior Foiling Cup here in Australia. We've held 3 of them now, and they've been very successful. And they've booked them for Italy and Switzerland. And I'd love to see them expand, around the world. These Junior Foiling Cups are open to sailors up to 16 years old. The boats are provided, it's pretty small, but they provide 6 Nickies and invite 18 sailors to each of them. And the great thing is that most of these kids are sailing on foils, foiling in a straight line within 20 minutes and having the time of their lives. I just think it's fantastic, and I'd like you to all look out for it. I will send you some video footage and some great photos of kids just having an absolute ball. I think it's a big part of our future. So I'd like them to help spread the word of this great little boat. I think it's unique, and there's other foiling boats around as well, I know, but this is, to me, the one that really nails it for the juniors. All power to the kids on foils, eh? Anyway, that's AAAA for today, and as I said, I'll follow this up, Tom, by sending you some terrific photos and some video footage. See you guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Alistair. And I have that video. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's about, 10, 15 minutes long, but have a look at this video that Alistair sent about this boat and whether this is the next best thing since the Wasp or otherwise. You be the judge. Have a look.
Last episode, we were at the Ronstand Junior Foiling Cup, where we'd met sailing royalty on the beach, and we were looking forward to having an amazing day on the water in perfect conditions, until the back came off my boat doing over 20 knots within about 12 seconds of launching. However, I was then offered the chance to take the Skeeter demo boat for a spin, which I was super grateful for.
Brake on. Off and leave.
Yep, goes down, yep.
Brake on. Let's take the brake off.
Brakes off.
That'll do.
Leave the brake off.
Yeah, just leave it on there. Brake on.
3, 2. So I've been wanting to try these for ages because they have a different foiling system to a boat like my Moth. So on my Moth, the flap at the back of the foil goes up and down to regulate the height of the boat above the water, which works really well until the boat's in a bow down attitude like this. And no matter what the flap says, it's going to keep going down until this happens. So instead of having a flap, the Skeeter has a foil where the whole foil actually articulates. So it achieves the same thing when it's foiling along level, in that it regulates the height using the wand on the front. But if you end up in a bow down situation, it's a lot harder for it to suck the boat down into the water. And if it does, the shape of the bow, a bit like an Amoka, sort of bounces it back up and off you go again. So I wanted to see how safe it actually felt. Quite stable, getting out to deep enough water so I don't accidentally run their boat into the ground. Huge thanks to David and Jim from Skeeter Foiling Craft for lending me this boat. I think Jim wanted to go for a sail himself, and I wasn't having the best day, so they let me take it for a spin. Okay, we'll round up. So basically what I'm doing here is just pulling the wand at the front down, which sets how high above the water the boat's going to fly. These boats have 3 sails to suit different crew weights. So this one was set up with the medium-sized 8.5 metre sail. So while these boats originally started as a concept in the Moth class, they've since evolved kind of out of class rules. They figured maybe that instead of having a gantry, they'll just make the hull longer. So you've got a bit of extra waterline length there. Like they're 12 foot long instead of 11 like a Moth. The 9.5 metre sail is also a little bit bigger than the Moth. I found that the extra size and just a bigger boat was a lot easier for me. If you might have noticed that I'm kind of jamming myself into a Moth, this felt a lot more kind of homey and comfortable. Coming into a puff.
Okay, you get the idea, and you can go on to Tom's YouTube channel and look at this. Just, I think if you Google on YouTube, if you just search against the Skeeter, and Ron Stan, and thanks Alistair, has had a part in the, I think this guy works that did this video, actually does work or is working for Ron Stan. But you see the idea here, and as John Emmett is saying, that looks a lot more fun than pushing water. And foiling, whether you foiling is your cup of tea or not, these boats are continuing to evolve, and kids do want to do it, so we're going to continue to follow it, even though I really like Magnus the Magnificent's piece yesterday celebrating the Ilka on his Rule 69 blog. Where, you know, here's the Ilka is what now, 55 years old? I think I had one in 1970, which is 55 years ago.
By another name.
No, well, it was a laser. And I had one of the original, first 1,000 or so lasers. Mm-hmm. We were selling them. We were a dealer for them in Michigan. Otherwise, speaking of Michigan, the Skeeter, there's an ice boat called the Skeeter. Big one, famously good, cool ice boat up in Scout Country and the Great Lakes area and beyond. And in Michigan, we have the Skeeter, but that's short for what you Aussies call the Mozzie. And the Skeeter, as in mosquito, is the state bird in Michigan. This boat looks cool. It doesn't look like a mosquito. Maybe a little bit. But we'll see. And Greg Phillips. Hi, Greg. I told you, Julia, in the pre-show that Greg Phillips is getting as good as Ted Ryman for sending jokes that are just on the edge of being not quite correct for this show. But he's saying at age 72, he's still sailing in Ilka. So Greg's my age. And obviously, I follow the rule, Greg, that you should not sail on a boat that's much shorter than your age in feet. So I'm sailing on a 50-footer, even though I'm 70, almost 72. A Skeeter. That reminds me of some jokes too, Julia, which we will not go into.
No.
Whatever inside information that you think I have, I would never share. It is not my... Okay, Grant is a man of few words, and if he has something to say, he'll say it. Okay, so she's not going to say anything. There it is. There's this new boat, the Skeeter. Thank you, Alistair Murray, for that. Thank you to Tom, and I can't remember his last name, Slattery, for that video, and for Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote for today. And as I say, I have another one in the can, Julia, that will no doubt play.
Great.
Or likely play on Tuesday. Which gets us to the last leg, Julia.
Yes.
And as I said at the top of the show in the show notes, I thought we'd do something here on the last leg about the Congressional Cup, which is starting 2 weeks from today. And we've got a promo video now, but I also had a note this morning, both from Commodore Meyer, Lisa Meyer, very kind note, and also from JP, not Jeffrey Peterson.
Oh, no.
But from James Pleasance, who said, tomorrow, not today, tomorrow is 2 weeks to go to the 60th Long Beach Congressional Cup, 30 May through 4 May, or 30 April, I think he means, through Sunday, May 4th. The favorite is Chris Poole. We'll show you a video of him in a moment. And he is from the USA, of course, and he's going for the three-peat. Fun facts, young skipper Ian Garretta from France finished fourth at the World Match Racing Tour final in China. He is sailing in his first Con Cup, and he has 2007 Con Cup winner and longtime WMRT sailor, good friend, Matthew Richard sailing as crew for him. So it's nice to see some of the old timers coming back, Julia. And also 7-time winner of the Match Cup Sweden in Marstrand, pictured here in this picture, by the way, Bjorn Hansen, is back at Con Cup this year. He finished 4th back in 2015 and 7th in 2016, but he has a lot of experience. And we'll see how he does, as this photo from 2023 of him winning in Sweden in...
He's going to age out pretty soon.
Well, no, there's no age limit to Con Cup. You could sail in that, Julie. You and I could go down there and try to qualify through the Ficker Cup. Wouldn't that be good?
Sure.
So that's from James Pleasance, the esteemed executive director of the World Match Racing Tour. Thank you, James, for sending that in to Lisa Meyer. And here is the promised promotional video for this year's Con Cup coming up in 2 weeks' time.
So winning back-to-back Congressional Cups in 23 and then in 24 was really awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Chris Poole and Riptide Racing.
The result we achieved in 23, going undefeated, which has never happened, still kind of blows my mind. You know, a lot of amazing Hall of Fame names haven't even won the Congressional Cup. And, you know, to go and do it undefeated and then to back it up and do it the next year against Ian Williams in the final, you know, we can take everyone down.
I love the Congressional Cup, the Belmont Pier, the Long Beach Yacht Club. Lisa Meyer is a terrific Commodore, leader of that organization, where they turn out 300 club members, been doing it for 60 years and plus, and
as volunteers.
Yeah. And it is, it's a fabulous event and will no doubt again be this year, even though apparently they can't shoehorn Ian Williams and Taylor Canfield back into the mix because, you know, it's just been a week now that they found out that Sail GP can't be sailed down in Brazil. And it would have been nice if those two guys could have come back and raced in Ficker Cup and then maybe qualified for, or just been inserted straight into Con Cup. But it wasn't to be. I think they've tried and given it the old school try, but it wasn't going to work with the limited time available, or so one hears. And bravo salute to Lisa Meyer and the Yacht Club for trying. But she did tell me this morning that Taylor Canfield is coming back to coach Dave Hood, who is the Long Beach Yacht Club's entry again this year into Con Cup. And he struggled, frankly. He's done up and down, but hopefully Taylor Canfield can coach him. It will be nice to have Taylor involved. And if there's any way that Ian Williams can get there in a coaching or other capacity, I'm sure he will. And the Sangmeister family, John and Sarah and the kids, all have Ian and normally stay at their place. And we'd hope to see that happen. And by the way, on Friday, John Sangmeister will be our guest on this show. I didn't have time to stick a slide of him. You all know what he looks like. But John's going to update us on the venue for the Olympics and why that has gone to Long Beach, what the other Olympic venues are going to be. And if there's any chance I can get a video from or get Lisa Meyer involved as well, Commodore Meyer, that would be great. Lisa, if you're on watching, I think you are. You just made a comment. I'd love to get you involved in Friday's show as well, either live or on Memorex, as they used to say in the tape commercials, but live or on a pre-recorded video. So that's what's going on 2 weeks from tomorrow. The granddaddy or grandmammy, would you say daddy or mammy?
I don't know.
Of them all, the Congressional Cup, one of the best events in the world at one of the best yacht clubs in the world, where they let us put, some say foist, umpiring onto the sailing world. We did it in the 88 Congressional Cup. And of course, today, every professional event, every match racing event, every team racing event and beyond are run with umpiring, thanks in large part to the experiment allowed by Long Beach Yacht Club us to do it in 1988. Okay, D Block, we're into that already with the last leg, but let's get our Whiskey Tango Foxtrot to wrap this one up very briefly. as we're just short of 2 hours, Julia.
Yes.
I promised you a short show today, and we're still at 2 hours. I can't help myself.
Well, things happen.
There we go. Just to show you that we are left, right, and center. When we see a good joke, we like it. This from Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin. My tariffs, Mr. Trump is saying, aren't working. Have you tried turning them on and off again? Julia, that was pretty clever.
Yes.
Because to some people, it would appear that his tariffs are being turned on and off, and rebooting the tariffs as the market goes up and down. What was the stock market? Flat today? I think
I didn't look.
You were watching it as I was in hair and makeup. Didn't you see when it closed? Okay, I thought that was pretty clever. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin. By the way, I saw too this morning, Mr. Trump, and those of you outside the country are not going to be amused by this perhaps, but Mr. Trump's ratings in this country are at an all-time high, even higher than during his inauguration. 100 days ago, whenever it was. Amazing. So at least in this country, he's reasonably popular. Now we've got some other news, and this also from Andrew from Alistair Murray, I should say. Sorry. Outside of Melbourne, there is a town called Sale, S-A-L-E, not for sale. It's near, Mafra, over there, well east of Melbourne, nearly on the coast. And Andrew, I'm 2 hours, I'm dottery anyway. He sent this road sign through, that is Alistair Murray, and he said, somebody stuck a sold sticker over the town of Sale. Sold! And he likes it not only because somebody was clever, but he says, hi, Tom, this is for the D Block. We have a large town in Victoria called Sale. Every time I've driven through it over the past couple of years, this makes me smile. Firstly, because of the sense of humor of the person who added the sticker. And secondly, because the authorities have obviously been happy to leave it there. Perhaps they have a sense of humor.
Oh, that's nice.
Too.
Oh, it's been there for a long time. That's great.
And it's clean.
Yeah.
It's clean, unlike some of our other D-Block segments here. Courtesy of Alistair Murray, the esteemed President Emeritus. And that's it. No dirty ones, no musical ones, nothing else. That gets us to the finish line, Julia. And you like to say?
Yes. I was impressed last week that our number of comments was up 650%. And it gets great attention for Sailing Illustrated. So,
well, we don't know any better. We keep doing this week after week, 2 shows a week. We're almost up to 900 shows, or will be, almost 850 in the 900 shows. And sooner or later, one of us will die right here in Studio B. You'll tune in. You know what I think about? Not that one of us is going to die anytime soon. Probably I'll go before you. But I think about us sitting here, and after all these earthquakes that have been happening, especially the big one in San Diego.
Yeah.
It was a 6.0 or 5.7. 5 point something in San Diego. A couple days. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
It was yesterday because I called
2 or 3 days ago.
daughter Meg to see if she survived. We felt it, but it was well east of San Diego. I imagine we're sitting here during one of these shows when the big one hits, and all the stuff shakes around. Probably the lights fall on your head and stuff is falling.
Well, you have to remember that this house is 100 years old.
Yep.
And it's been through every earthquake.
Well, not the 06 earthquake, because that was 1920, 5 or 6, this house was built.
24, yeah.
24. But so it's 101 years old. But this house survived the bad 1989 earthquake, the Loma Prieta earthquake.
Not a scratch.
Which down the street, all the pictures that they used from that earthquake is a block and a half away from here. Apartments falling into the street. Right. And all of the gas lines catching on fire. It burned a good bit of the marina, that 1989 earthquake.
All the TV people were around because there was a big baseball game going on.
Well, the World Series was between the bridge series between the Oakland A's. Now they've moved, but the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. Right. So that was live on TV when that happened.
Right, but they used the Palace of Fine Arts as a center of a lot of pictures.
Which is a block away from us here.
And anybody who's ever been to our house is going, oh my God, you're in the middle of it.
The middle of the earthquake zone. Well, we are. That's exactly true. So hopefully we don't have any quakes. Thanks, Clay Embley, saying great show. Mark Holland, well, you can take credit for all these great shows. No, I'll tell you who takes credit. Yeah, we put it together. But without the FOSI, without all of you contributing, sending me ideas, sending me links, sending me stuff, and all of you do. And I'm entirely grateful. And I wonder how many times per day Grant Dalton decides to change. I think they've been thinking about this a long time, Stingray. They haven't been changing the protocol. And it's really tough because even if you got to do it and be sure all the sections are linked. So you make a philosophical or technical change in one part of the document, got to be sure it adds up to the other parts of the documents. It's not easy. Alistair Murray, thank you. Thank you very much. And Julia, we want to thank all the folks because without them,
indeed,
we wouldn't have a show. Clark Chapin is saying he's already liked and shared the show to his own pages.
Yes.
We appreciate that.
Ask everybody else to do the same thing.
Yeah. And also to those who give us $1 or $2 or more per month to keep us on the air. You can see why I don't like to have sponsors, why I don't like to have North Sales or something, because if I then go on a rant about the America's Cup, they might drop their, not to pick on North Sales, they might give us more money. I don't know how they feel about the Cup, but sponsors, especially in the sailing world, aren't going to be too keen about us talking about non-sailing CEOs and going after world sailing or U.S. sailing when they screw up. And some people won't be happy that we're celebrating Charlie Enright. He's probably got some 1 or 2 enemies someplace. Cool show. See you on Friday. You too, Ted Ryman. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for your support. Thanks to everybody who gave us audio, video, and images for today's show. Julia, final thoughts?
No. Looking forward to summer coming.
And get your tax extension filed.
You have to do it with your help this afternoon.
Can I show this from afar? Julia brought her tax file down here. Tax return for Julia Vatican. She worked on her taxes during the pre-show, which is better than I. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your week wherever in the world you are. Go sailing. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao. Until Friday. Ciao for now.